Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chandra Ballabha Giridharadhari Yashoda Nandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashoda Nandana Pradajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading today from the Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, text number 14. This is the chapter is called Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender. Sarvendriya guna drastre Sarva pratyaya hetave Asata chaya yoktaya Sad Abhasaya Te Namaha. Sarvendriya Guna Drashtre. Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. Asata Chayaya Yoktaya. Sad Abhasaya Te Namaha. Sarvendriya Guna Drashtre. Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. Asata Chaya Yoktaya. Sadabhasaya Te Namaha. Sarvendriya Guna Drashtre. Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. Asata Chaya Yoktaya. Sarabhasaya Te Namaha. Sarvendriya Guna Drashtre. Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. Asata Chaya Yoktaya. Sadabhasaya Te Namaha. Word for word synonyms. Sarva Indriya Guna Drashtre. Unto the seer of all objectives pursued by the senses. Sarva Pratyaya Hetave. Who is the solution to all doubts, and without whose help one cannot solve all doubts and inabilities. Asata, with the manifestation of unreality or illusion. Chayaya, because of the resemblance. Uktaya, called. Sat, of reality. Abhasaya, unto the reflection. Te, unto you. Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances. Translation. My Lord, you are, and this is still we're still reading the prayer or the prayer or prayers of Gajendra in his distressed condition. My Lord, you are the observer of all the objectives of the senses. Without your mercy, there is no possibility of solving the problem of doubts. The material world is just like a shadow resembling you. Indeed, one accepts this material world as real because it gives a glimpse of your existence. Repeat after me. My Lord, you are the observer of all objectives of the senses. Without your mercy, there is no possibility of solving the problem of doubts. The material world is just like a shadow, resembling you. Indeed, one accepts this material world as real because it gives a glimpse of your existence. Srila Prabhupada's purport. To paraphrase this verse, Srila Prabhupada says, quote, the objectives of sensual activities are actually observed by you. Without your direction, the living entity cannot take even a step forward. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya Chahang Hridi Sangnavishto Matak Sritirgyanam Apohanam Cha. You are situated in everyone's heart, and only from you come remembrance and forgetfulness. Chayeva Yasha Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga. The living entity under the clutches of Maya wants to enjoy this material world, but unless you give him directions and remind him, he cannot make progress in pursuing his shadowy objective in life. I'll read that one again. The living entity under the clutches of Maya wants to enjoy this material world, but unless you give him directions and remind him, he cannot make progress in pursuing his shadowy objective in life. The conditioned soul wrongly progresses toward the wrong objective life after life, and he is reminded of that objective by you. In one life, the conditioned soul desires to progress toward a certain objective, but after his body changes, he forgets everything. Nonetheless, my Lord, because he wants to enjoy something in this world, you remind him of this, and this in his next birth. Because the conditioned soul wants to forget you, by your grace, you give him opportunities, life after life, by which he can almost perpetually forget you. Therefore, you are eternally the director of the conditioned souls. It is because of you that it is because you are the original cause of everything that everything appears real. The ultimate reality is your Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. That was a paraphrase of the verse. End quote. The word Sarva Pratyaya Hetave is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who says that a result gives one a glimpse of its cause. For example, since an earthen pot is the result of the actions of a potter, by seeing the earthen pot, one can guess at the existence of the potter. Similarly, this material world resembles the spiritual world, and any intelligent person can guess how it is acting. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Chakshena Prakriti Suyate Satcharacharam. The activities of the material world suggest that behind them is the superintendence of the Lord. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnanajanam Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, this is a very elevated prayer. Very intelligent prayer being recited by Gajendra, the king of the elephants, in his great distress as he's losing the fight with a gigantic crocodile. So, so Lord, the points made here. So Lord Krishna, he is. We're completely dependent on Lord Krishna. We're completely dependent. So if we take birth and we have so many material desires carried over from our previous life, we wouldn't even know to what those desires were, so that we could try to satisfy them and maybe and eventually become frustrated with it. We wouldn't even know what those desires were, except that Krishna is in our heart, Super Soul, and he is reminding us. Or Krishna is reminding us of our past desires, both material and spiritual. So we take birth in this lifetime. If our previous lifetime we were, well, just like some people are very, very attached to music, maybe piano, or like great composers, and that we in the past. So so next lifetime, if they've had the good karma and they've of course taken birth as a human being, they might from a very early childhood start playing piano and even writing music, because they normally wouldn't have that ability or that knowledge or that desire, but they're carrying it over because they've been reminded by Lord Krishna, Super Soul in the heart. They've been reminded that this is what you wanted. This is something that you kept you in the material world because you were attached to this, and this is what you wanted. So now you have another birth. Now you can start with this. You can become very absorbed from your early childhood in this producing music and playing piano or playing some other musical instrument. This is just one example, and this is actually very important for the living entity, because as long as we have material desires and desire, even desire for nice things like classical music, we'll say, even if we have those kind of desires, if it's not Krishna centered, then we'll keep taking another birth. And if our life is basically was in the mode of goodness pretty much previously, and we have those desires, then we can take birth again and again and again in human life and get a good birth, and maybe carry this desire with us from lifetime to lifetime. Which is also why we find many times that someone is inclined to do a certain kind of work, certain kind of activity, he will take birth in a family where his father and grandfather and great-father were doing that activity. Just like I know, for example, a doctor. He says he's a doctor. He was a doctor early on. He was smart, finished medical school early. But he, from his early childhood, all he wanted to do was be a doctor. He grew up. His father was a doctor. He still is a doctor. His grandfather was a doctor. His great grandfather was a doctor. But in terms of this verse and this purport, what's happening, philosophically speaking, is that some soul has these desires. His karma is good enough that he gets a human body and certain intelligence needed to become doctor, and to help facilitate his becoming a doctor and carrying out, and ultimately maybe saying, hey, this is, being a doctor is great, but I'm still lacking something. Maybe he'll at one point go forward into spiritual life. The same person I know who was a doctor, Hindu background, but he's not vegetarian. His family's not vegetarian. He's not really following spiritual life, but he's inclined in that way because he was reminded by Super Soul in the heart that this is what he was interested in. This is what one thing that brought him back to the material world, because and therefore so he's giving you a chance to do this, and hopefully later on in his life he'll say, hey, I need something. This is good. It's a good occupation. I'm helping people in medicine, but I need something more. I need something spiritual, and then we put those kind of, put those kind of things away behind him, and also concentrate on what is good for the soul eternally, like that. So here Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how Krishna, he's in our heart, and he reminds us of what desires we had previously, and he also is in our heart, and he helps us to forget. So if we want to forget God, then he'll give us the ability to forget him also. He actually fulfills our desires, even if our desires are not necessarily good for us. He will fulfill those desires because he does give us that free will. So, say if we want to be, say if say somehow or other we've become an atheist, and we're determined, I'm going to be an atheist. He'll help us to be an atheist. Of course, an atheist is going to suffer some hellish conditions, maybe take birth in even in lower species of life, because rejecting even the concept of God is very low, very sinful. But if someone wants that, then the Lord in the heart will give him that opportunity, and so if one wants to forget God, then he'll do that. I remember one devotee, I don't know, somebody was traveling on an airplane, and he was telling the story. So he was traveling. He was probably dressed in his dhoti, his devotional clothes, and it was a long flight, maybe going to India, so you have many hours. And he was sitting there, and he was just chanting Hare Krishna, chanting on his beads, on and on and on and on for hours and hours and hours. And then there was someone in the seat across from him, on the other side of the aisle, who was watching him, and the entire time he was there. And sometimes he was sleeping, sometimes he was reading a magazine, and for a few minutes put it down, get something else, and finally at the end, the man mentioned to the devotee, said, for the last 8 hours, I've been trying to forget God. He said, I'm trying to forget God, and you're trying to remember God. He recognized that. So the devotees, just by being there and acting as devotee, and the guy was left an impression upon him that here's somebody who's trying to put God and anything spiritual out of his mind, and here's the devotee who is just as absorbed in trying to remember Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna constantly for hours and hours at a time. So ultimately, Krishna gives us what we desire. If we want to remember him, he'll help us remember him. And if we want to forget him, he'll help us to forget him. And then another point in this purport is that someone who's a little bit intelligent, and I don't mean intelligent in the sense of you got to have a PhD in the university to be intelligent. Someone who's actually in a spiritual sense has a little intelligence, then he can see very clearly that with the world there's there's so much order in the world. Of course, there's many things out of order in the world, but as far as the things that we can't control, like the planets and the solar system and the way the planets move. And like yesterday, there was a solar eclipse somewhere, went across from Mexico to northern Maine, I think. And many people were making a big thing out of trying to watch that, a total solar eclipse. Some places they got rained out, heavy storms. But in any case, the point is that the solar eclipse, or not just the solar eclipse, but they can predict when these eclipses are going to happen, the exact day, the exact time. And why can they predict? Because the planets, the sun, the moon, the whole solar system is so organized, so regulated, so perfect in what it does that you can watch it and just you can understand what it's going to do in the future based on what it's just from observing it. So they could predict from probably many years ago that on this day at this time, from starting at this time going to this time, and in this location, there will be a full solar eclipse. As an example, they can understand these things. Why? Because there's because they can do that. They can figure these things out because there is order. But an intelligent person would not just say, "Hey, these things have just come about like this." So and now let's see this very amazing thing called solar eclipse. It doesn't happen that often. An intelligent person would say, "Yes, there is a solar eclipse, or there's something happening in the solar, the cosmic situation out there, and there's so much regulation, so much order. So that what does that mean? It means that there's a God." The conclusion is obviously there's God, because these things don't just happen accidentally. Of course, some people will still say that. They want to try to deny the existence of God, but in reality, a spiritually smart person can conclude that there is order, and the reason there is order is because there is a supreme personality of Godhead who is putting everything in order. So that was another point in this this purport. That there's, just like Chopard gives the example of the potter, the person who makes like pottery out of clay. So if the potter takes some lump of clay, puts it on his wheel, and then he spins the wheel, and he knows how to work with his hands in such a way to make pots and different things out of it. So, there's an art to doing that. But if someone sees the pot that's been made, someone sees that so many clay pots and so many different shapes and sizes of clay pots, then it's understood. These clay pots didn't just materialize on the shelf without, they're there because there was a person, potter, the pot maker, who made them, who knew the science or the art, how do you call it, and did what he had to do with the right ingredients, and he made these pots. So we have to, not just we, but the people in general need to try to understand and accept, not just understand, but accept that, okay, there's order in this world, there's a God. And if we want to understand how to act properly in this world, we have to see what are the laws of God. And the Vedas give those laws. There are different religious paths, of course, and each path is taught according to, it's called Desha Kala Parta. Time, Desha, place, time, and circumstance or audience. So the different religious leaders that have come. Jesus Christ came at one point. The Prophet Muhammad came at, when he came. The whole Jewish tradition started way back then, and they all accepted. A God, of course, but the teachings were according to what the people at that time could understand. For example, the Ten Commandments, which were brought down through Moses. Moses brought these 10 Commandments down, given by God, to the people. And why do you have to tell your people that, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, and so on? Why do you have to say these things? It means that these things were very much going on in society. This is practically his normal life, so therefore you have to start, the basic principles. You got to tell people that, hey, you got to control yourself, control your senses, control your activities, like that. So the teachings that were taught were, on one level, based on what the people at that time had a chance, at least, to understand. Whereas if we look back, each religion's like that. In Islam, it's like that also. There are so many rules and regulations. Prophet Muhammad was he encouraged being vegetarian, but he knew that if he said, you absolutely, without any doubt, without any question, you must be vegetarian, then people would just completely completely reject everything he said, because they weren't going to accept that. So he would say, give so many rules and regulations and instructions that he was receiving, Prophet Muhammad, and so much he could give them to the people, and he said, and as far as possible, you should be vegetarian, like that. He would teach like that, and some people were, but for the most part, in the Islamic religion, the Christian religion, and the Jewish religion, there are very few who are religiously vegetarian. So anyway, the point is that people are taught. The religious leaders teach the people what they have a chance to understand. Jesus. Jesus and also said to his disciples, I have so much more to teach you, but you cannot bear to hear it. So how much he knew, pure devotee of Krishna, Jesus Christ, how much more did he know? I mean, he certainly knew about, pure devotee would know Krishna. He knows what God actually looks like, what God actually does in the spiritual world. He knows so many things, but he couldn't teach these people because they were at that time way too low. But then a question, we may say, well, wow, Kali Yuga is going on. Kali Yuga is going on. That was, maybe 2,000 years ago, right? A little more than 2,000 years ago, he couldn't teach the people like that. And here we're studying Srimad-bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and so much elevated knowledge. We're saying, how how is it that we, as in 2,000 years more into Kali Yuga, was so much more degraded in society? How are we able to have this? We should be, our teaching should be less and lower than before. But the answer is, it's because of Lord Chaitanya. Because Lord Chaitanya came 500, a little more than 500 years ago. He came, and he gave this knowledge in a different way. He gave the knowledge for the people in general, and that anyone could chant the Hare Krishna mantra, actually chant the names of God, and he specifically recommended the Hare Krishna mantra. They could by that chanting become God conscious, and we were given this kind of knowledge, this high knowledge, these conclusions in Srimad-bhagavatam and so on, based on the philosophy, the Achintya Bheda Vedattva philosophy that Lord Chaitanya gave us. So because of Lord Chaitanya, even though Kali Yuga is more degraded now, much more degraded than it was even back during the time of Jesus Christ, or the time of the Prophet Muhammad, or before that, the time of Abraham and Moses and so on. It's more degraded in general, but we have this opportunity. So we need to follow and take advantage of this opportunity. Let me see some questions come in. Everyone was advised to stay home on the solar eclipse. Is it very inauspicious day? Okay. Yes. Okay, just answer your question that came in here. Lila Smriti. Usually, sometimes in temples, sometimes the deities are closed and different things like that during the solar eclipse. Solar eclipse and new lunar eclipse are considered, astrologically speaking, Vedically astrologically speaking, to be inauspicious, because what a solar eclipse is, this is not modern science, this is the Vedic version, is there's a planet called Rahu, and Rahu is a dark planet. That's why we can't actually see it. Dark planet means it doesn't reflect any light. So this dark planet, every so often, and as I was saying earlier in the class, can be calculated. It will come in front of the sun. So it's between here and the sun. It's not actually the moon, by the way, that is blocking the sun. It appears that way. The moon is actually going behind the sun. It's actually farther away, according to the Vedas. And Rahu goes in front of the sun exactly at the same time and blocks it. Maybe the whole sun or part of it. So the sun is very. The sun is a heavenly planet. It's the source of heat and light, and the whole universe is very important. The Rahu is actually a demon who is trying to block the sun's light. That's what he's doing. So it's considered to be inauspicious, and especially it's considered to be inauspicious if you are, where there was a full solar eclipse, then it's more inauspicious. So, and it's usually a sign of problems that will come in the world. So like that. So we usually devotees don't usually go out, usually don't eat at that time during the eclipse. And in some places the deities are closed. I don't think we close specifically for that. Well, actually our deities were closed anyway, because that during the time it would have been happening, deities are resting anyway. So that's how it would have been here. Personally, I stayed inside and was just chanting Hare Krishna. So yes, but to answer the question, yes, it is a eclipses are considered inauspicious. Of course, if there's an eclipse and everyone is chanting Hare Krishna, then of course the Hare Krishna makes it, a change. The whole situation can become auspicious. But the eclipse itself, what's actually happening is inauspicious time, and you can counteract that and protect yourself by chanting Hare Krishna. So any other quick points, and then I'll open up any questions if anyone has any. No, that's basically it. Just the same thing I always conclude in every class, because it's really the whole point here, is we study we study Srimad-bhagavatam, and there's so much knowledge, so much information, so much instructions given here, and it's all to help us, to convince us that one way or another we need to 100% dedicate our lives to the service of the Lord. And dedicating our lives to the service of the Lord doesn't mean necessarily living in the temple and giving up family, giving up job, giving up all these other things. It means that we make our priority engaging in devotional service. And we have the very nice example of, one of the very nice examples was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who definitely had, materially speaking, he had a big family, 10 or 11 family members. He had a big family. He had a very high profile job. He was a high court judge in the system, and in the material system. It was a very high responsible position, and still he lived. So he had his time in the job. He had his time, taking care of family like that. But he was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that he wrote in his lifetime about 100 books, Krishna conscious books, 100 Krishna conscious books. He did many things, but most notably were all the Krishna conscious books that he wrote, and the preaching and the guidance that he gave. And even in his job as a judge, he put down, arrested, and judged different people, more than one person, who claimed to be God, and he actually challenged them and defeated them like that. He even there was a tree that was a ghost known to be living in that tree, and he had somebody sit down and read through the entire Srimad-bhagavatam at the base of that tree, and when the Srimad-bhagavatam was finished, the ghost was gone. It was disappeared from there, never to come back. So on different levels, he did so much, and yet he had many material duties. So what to speak of us? We see how we can make our lives Krishna conscious in whatever material situation we have. Krishna consciousness is not based on material situation. Another message here. Thank you. I wanted to know, in Scripture, Krishna accepts water, flour, leaf, grains, etc. But why is it that it is not accepted without tulasi on top? Krishna likes tulasi. He sent Srimati Tulasi Devi to this world to help us to become Krishna conscious. And at least maybe it says it's not always possible in one's home. If you're somewhere and you don't have a tulasi plant, or if maybe you're in a very cold place and you can't grow her like that. But definitely in the temples, we need to do that, because, well, Krishna says, Krishna wants that tulasi there with his offering. He requests it. So that when he says fruit, water, flower, leaf, grains like that, the leaf, there can be many kinds of leaves. The Srila Prabhupada says leaf especially means tulasi leaf as far as offering. So yes, and by offering Krishna tulasi leaves, then we make very quick spiritual advancement. In fact, tulasi is so nice. If you water her, you circumambulate her, you take her leaves and offer to Krishna, you pray to her. All these different activities are beneficial. And the culmination of all that, of taking care of tulsi, circumambulating her, watering her, taking care of her, planting her, this is all leads to the final point of offering her leaves to Krishna. So the real conclusion, the most important thing, the best thing, and this is actually stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, one of either Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, that all those in that prayer that we sing, simply by praying, simply by circumambulating and so on, simply by offering leaves to tulsi leaves. The most important is the offering of the tulasi leaves. Everything else is beneficial, but the most important is the conclusion of it, which is taking the tulasi leaves from Tulasi Devi, who we are worshiping, and offering those leaves to Krishna. So that was the conclusion in that way. Questions? Okay, it's getting a little bit late now. I have to go on to other services. So I thank you very much. I see we have several devotees that came in today. I appreciate that. And please share these videos when you see them. Share them with others. I'm seeing more and more devotees are coming and seeing. We have maybe today we have 4 online and 1 devotee here. And sometimes I see after a few days we have 20 or 30 or 40 who have seen these classes, because if they're being shared, then more devotees get that chance. So thank you very much, and we'll plan to continue tomorrow morning with verse 15 of this chapter. Okay? Srila Prabhupada ki